Hello, my little potato chips. How you doing? Wee Paddy from across the shock. And another wee video. And that's a wee chat video this morning. And everything I say today, I stand to be corrected because I don't know everything about knives. In fact, I know less than probably most reviewers. I just pick things because they're shiny and nice. But I wanted to talk about the Barlow because I recently put a video up on this new knife that I got from Ashley Harrison. And I'd said it was a Barlow. And to me, it's a Barlow. But it was an innocuous. It wasn't done nasty. Somebody had said he didn't think it was a Barlow, and so it set me off in this wee pattern of thinking. And about 3 days later, and a bit of sulking, because that's what I have. I just thought I'd do a wee bit. Now I was looking at Levine's guide and I was reading about Barlows, and it gives you the size that your average Barlow would be is 3 3/8 inches for a standard Barlow, and a granddaddy Barlow, which I have up there, 5 inches. That's 5 inches. But these are all, barring this one, these are all Barlows, and a lot of them are different sizes. So the size of the knife can vary. It doesn't matter as far as Levine's is going. These three here, this GEC, this Taylor's Eyewitness, and this Bulldog are the three here that are 3 3/8. Okay. But the bolsters on them are not the same sizes. So does the shortest one of the lot of the bolsters then not become a Barlow? Because to me, I'm just going to take this maker here. This is Ashley Harrison. This is his jackknife. Eddie, sorry, my dog's going mad there. This, to me, is just a jackknife. It's a single-bladed knife coming from obviously from one side, but you can get a two-bladed. And it's got a small bolster on the top here. That's just a jackknife. The rest of these are all Barlows. Now, when I first came around and people talked about Barlows, the average size that I heard was that the bolster is to be roughly a third of the length of the knife. That's fine. I accept that that's a rough estimate, much as the fact is that the length of the Barlow is 3 3/8. It's rough. I've got larger ones here. They're not granddaddy Barlows, but they're bigger. There's a smaller one that's smaller by far. It's only 3 inches long, but it's still a Barlow in my eyes. And I'm sort of waiting to be proved wrong. This Barlow isn't a third of this knife. Be a lot shorter. This is not a third. It would be shorter. Some of these, the GEC is probably the closest. I'm sorry, the GEC, the Bulldog, and the Taylor's Eyewitness are probably the closest to a third of the knife. This is actually a little bit longer, I would have thought. But it's a bigger knife. The smaller knives, these are probably quite equal. There's a Boker and a Case. They're quite equal. That's probably about a third as well. But I think the things with knives, I think sometimes we get into this mindset that somebody told me this one time, so it must be true, and it must be that all the way through your knife life. And that's the joy about knives. These are just tools, and the Barlow was made as a working man's tool. And when they give a size of 3 3/8, back in the days when everything was handmade, I would say there was very rarely any two knives that came out exactly the same size, that had exactly the same size bolster. They would have just been made to me, a Barlow is just a knife that has a bigger bolster. And the reason the bigger bolster was put onto knives, now this again is just on what I heard as I was coming along, was to make the knife stronger, because these were supposed to be work knives. The average knives at the time had a little small bolster, because they weren't there to be a work knife. They were there to cut bits of string, cut food, do things like that. They weren't really, these knives, the pocket knives, weren't work knives. They're big fixed blades they would have used for work. But the Barlow was to be a working man's knife that he could fold up and put in his pocket. That's what I heard. That's what I believe. And I believe that all the sizes that people talk about, oh, well, that's not a Barlow. If this maker makes a jackknife like this, the difference in his Barlow is huge. I mean, it's twice the size of that. Does GEC make a jackknife that's twice the size? That doesn't matter. To me, it just doesn't matter. If this man's making a jackknife this size, then this will be his Barlow because the Bolster is twice the size of his jackknife. And I'm quite happy to accept that. And if he calls that a Barlow, he's a better man than me because I can't make them, so I have no say in them. To me, that's a Barlow. Yes, these two are somewhat the same length and this Barlow is bigger, probably more towards what the traditional size would have been, I think. Now, bearing in mind, Barlows started and originated in the late 1600s, the middle of the late 1600s. We all know there's Obadiah Barlow, although he wasn't the first Barlow, but I think he was probably the man who patented the Barlow knife because he started putting his name on the knives. Anyway, that's a long time ago. I bet you nobody was that bothered. But I just wanted to say, and this is by no means a dig to the person. I love it when people comment and give their views. It's just sometimes I don't agree with their views. And that's fine too. It doesn't make me a bad person or him a bad person. It just means we've heard from somebody what we have accepted as the right version of something. But there's very few of these, and some of them are the same length, but their bolster sizes are different. Some are bigger, some are smaller. So to me, there is no set size. There's rough guidance, and the rough guidance that I got out of the Levines was it's a 3 3/8 inch knife. Well, that's the same size as a boy's knife, the Sheffield knife, and the German bulldog knife there. A German-made bulldog knife. The other knives are roughly around that size. We're talking about, a tenth or 2/10 here, or an eighth or 2/8 different on most of these knives. So that's fine. All their bolsters are different sizes, and I picked ones that were different specifically to put it down here because unless you're going to get rules out of measure and say, well, this is we're not going to do that. A Barlow is a Barlow where the bolster is bigger than normal. That's to me what a Barlow is. Now, if somebody has the facts on that and it's different, please let me know because I would love to know, because then in future videos, I'm not going to be making up things. But again, I'm going to go back to a knife maker, can call a knife whatever he wants. And if this man calls this a Barlow, I'm quite happy to accept it because I know what his jackknives are like. There we go. That's as simple as it is for me. So the size of the bolster to me doesn't matter as long as it's bigger than what a normal bolster would be. Because the bolster was put on to give the knife more strength. And another thing I heard again, I don't know whether it's true, and I've said this before and nobody can back to me. The biggest reason they went to the bolster on a knife was when they had, a lot of the knives were made with wood and things like that, and the ones at the end of the day that didn't have the best of wood, they put a bigger bolster on to give it more strength because maybe the wood wasn't of higher, it wasn't a Coca-Cola or something like that. It was just an old bit of pine or something. So they put a bigger bolster on to give the wood a bit more strength and rigidity so that it could be used. I've heard that. I don't know whether that's true or not. But it makes sense to me in my head. That's a reason why you would put a bigger bolster on. To give rigidity, to give that. That's what it's for. So there we go. What do you think, or what's your opinion on Barlows? Or do you not just care and you've just listened to Paddy have a wee rant? But it's not a rant. It's just I just got them all out and I sat there and I thought, what can I say? What can I do? If anybody has something more that they would like to add to the Barlow debate, please put it down below. You'll never annoy me. You can call me thick as plank. I'll never be annoyed. I'll enjoy having a chat with you afterwards. You're probably not that good looking anyway. All right. Paddy's away. Take care, everybody. Bye now.